Okay, how's everybody doing? Good? We're holding? Okay. All right, last one before lunch. Dinner, lunch. Lunch was good though. All right, so for those who don't know me, my name is Pascal Radic. I live in France, in Nice, and my area of work and somehow expertise is the exploration of altered state of consciousness using light, sound, and plasma. So that's actually how I got to meet with Dan and Paul and other people about a year ago when I acquired my theraphi and doing some personal research and also having some people testing it. But today I'm here to talk about the Hypnagogic Light. And we've got two devices here that I'd love to tell you a little bit more, because as we've heard a lot in the past presentations, you will find out in the next couple of minutes how much things that have been shared will connect with those lights, the mind, what's happening in the mind, what's happening in the brain, in the pineal gland, and some of the things. I won't spend like hours, although I love talking, but I will try to be as brief as possible, because I've heard that some people are really excited to try some of those devices that I will offer as of tonight. So I will try to go straight to the point, even though there's definitely some sciences behind, but I am also very intrigued into the metaphysical aspects of what these lamps can induce. So, right. So, what is it exactly? How does it work? Hypnagogic light is just a term that we're using because of the state that we're targeting, which is the hypnagogic state. That typical or famous state which is at the border of the sleep state and the waking state.
And the lucid dreaming state.
Absolutely. And even people who are into like astral travel and things like this is the gateway to understand and learn about. But we're going to keep that for later. So basically the way it works is simple. Both lamps have dozens of different programs that go between 10 and 50 an hour, 50 minutes in an hour. And each of these programs have specific sequences of different wavelengths. These wavelengths go from 0 hertz up to 200 hertz. That's what we found out probably is also due to the limitation of the LEDs that we are using in those lamps. But basically it's about stimulating and inducing states via light into the brain, and that's what we quoted yesterday, brain entrainment, because our ability to naturally entrain to an environment or to certain stimuli around us. So basically the way it works, we're either seated or we're lying down under it, eyes closed, not open eyes closed. And the lamp is going to basically send some flickering lights, white lights, at different speeds and different intensities. And as you allow yourself to fall into that both stimulating and relaxing states, you're gonna connect with things inside. And that's the whole idea of these lamps. So a very quick history about these lamps. So we've got over there a lamp called Lucia number 3, which are coming from Austria by two doctors. One is a clinical physiotherapist and the other one is a neurologist. And the very quick history behind that is that one of them, when he was a child, had an accident and almost died, and he had a near-death experience. And that very particular event where basically was propelled into that supraluminous reality or states, overpowering and filled with indescribable feelings of love, etc., was so strong that it triggered in him this passion to understand better if that was just a process of the brain, or if there were also other things out there, other realities. So with this colleague and friend, they came up with looking at how they could induce those kind of altered states of consciousness by using light, because the light is this common phenomenon that we see all the time. And actually, if you look back in history, in our whole human history, in many tribal history, the light or fire has always been a major component into those society, into sharing things, into even shamanic journeys, etc., etc., in alchemies, etc. So in 2009, they basically came up with that light over there because at some point in that year, they got to a point where, with one of the programs they were using, there was almost that feeling of living again, almost that NDE, which was so amazing and profound. And that's when they said, okay, here we are, let's not do anything more, we'll lock the project, and let's go further into that. 3 years later, two gentlemen from the UK bought that lamp and started doing their own experiments. And the two of them decided to basically build their own lamps, to make their own exploration and to share it. So we've got basically two main light technologies today. There's actually one more that is also in existence from an American guy living in Thailand, but it's not as broadly known.
What's it called?
It's called Anja Light.
A-N-J-A?
Yeah. But it's the same of technology, basically.
And the same as the Ajna light?
Yeah, it goes in the same direction. So I got interested into these lamps, these two lamps, because I've got friends from Australia that came in 2012 to my place and saying, hey, we're heading for Austria, where we're meeting these two doctors because apparently they created this amazing lamp, and do you want to join us? So I said, yeah, sure. So I spent 3 days with these two amazing gentlemen, really brilliant minds, and not to fall into the stereotype of, because you've been educated and working in a scientific way, your mind is maybe, restricted for certain things or certain concepts. That was the opposite. These two guys, they've tried so many things off the beaten track, things legal and illegal, not to name any of them, but in the pursuit of understanding consciousness and higher states. So that's why they came up with that lamp. And then these two here with this one. So that's basically a little bit of the history. Now, some of the effects that we observe when we're under these lamps are very interesting. There's this change in the breathing pattern that we often see, leading to a very deep state of relaxation, sometimes in just a couple of seconds, if not in 2 or 3 minutes. A lot of people experience a better sleep in the nights that follow. It seems like it alters positively those sleeping patterns. And for those who are a little bit literate about the brain mechanics, it's all regulated by the pineal gland. So no surprise. There's also a very interesting reaction, is that when you're under these lamps, although you have your two eyes closed and you get all these flashes of lights, the brain reacts, and different areas of the brain react in particular ways, and also obviously the pineal gland, leading you to see amazing amount of colors, shapes, sometimes even sacred geometry shapes. And even some people sometimes tell me, I've seen colors I've never seen on Earth. So it's like, wow, okay. Also this stress reduction that we see often, obviously, because if you reach a relaxed state or a meditative state, I mean, it's a no-brainer. That feeling of letting go, that I get a lot of feedback of people after sessions. They usually have that feeling of being more distant with whatever worries they might or challenges they might have and face in their daily life. So sometimes it helps a lot with, you know, just overcoming or going beyond some personal issues that people have. Also that idea of being able to see things like through the eyes of a child. I like that idea as well, because a lot of us adults sometimes have forgotten a little bit of our, you know, childhood feeling and innocence. So it's nice that too. And also another thing that is quite of interest and of importance to say is because during those sessions, often people will reach a state that is beyond the state of thoughts. Everything that is that belongs to your personality, your individuality, and everything that is labeled that you've built over the years since you were born vanish. It never lasts long. It's just a couple of seconds, maybe 15, 20 seconds at the very most, although it will come back because it's very cyclical, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But there is this sensation of going beyond your thoughts, your mind, the monkey mind, and therefore, if you have, I don't know, health issues, even, you know, very physical issues, pain, whatever, a lot of people do feel or experience sometimes a drop, if not a complete release of any pain after a session. It's not systematic, but that comes back quite often. So it's an interesting phenomenon that we observe as well. Also, this sensation of sometimes floating almost above your body, or on the contrary, feeling extremely heavy, like falling inside whatever the bed you're in. It's all different feelings that you can get. And sometimes by some, and that's how I explain it, but there must be some kind of resonance effect with emotions, memories stored deep within, and sometimes from God knows where, that are triggered and come back to the surface. And sometimes I can hear people telling me, I've thought about that moment in my childhood, or about my father or my first spouse or whatever moment in their life, and they haven't been thinking about that for like ages, you know. So it's interesting to see that sometimes things just come back up and seems to be triggered by whatever reason, and it's unexpected, and usually it's also a sign that the body, I would even say that your whole being is willing to let go of certain things from the past. I've had it's actually not such a good example, but so don't get scared at all, but I had this lady one day that came to me and we had a session, and usually I would say at 99.8% of all sessions, it's a very joyful, positive, relaxing experience. But sometimes it can trigger things as I just mentioned. And that lady came one day, and at the end of the session, so the program stops, and I ask her, so how are you doing? And she looks at me like stunned, and she said, well, I went through all the traumas I had in my life. When I was raped, when my husband hit me, and she was listing me like all these things, like oh my gosh. And so I look at her and I say, so, but how do you feel? How are you doing with that? And she said, you know, it's very strange because it feels like it isn't. It's like over, you know. It's past. I am not affected by this, and I was just watching all these traumas, just like, you know, passing by, and I'm like, oh my God, That's a strong experience. Not the typical kind of experience that people have. But, and it was literally like she just turned a page in her life book, you know? And it was extraordinary. And there are plenty of different stories that I can talk about. And actually, in 2 minutes, I will share a testimonial from a lady or a man that a colleague of mine that works in Colorado collected. So that's nice. Since I'm based in France, obviously most of my clients are French-speaking. So I don't have much to share in English, but I'm glad that I had that from my colleague. So that's basically it. And as it says here at the bottom, it creates a bridge to higher states of consciousness by stimulating the pineal gland, which explains the feeling of well-being both physiologically and physically reported by most users. And that leads to an interesting point, which is that famous pineal gland. So most likely a lot of you know about that gland, or have heard of it at some point, because I mean Dan and Paul have talked in previous conferences, and you probably also saw some videos on the internet about that. But just to summarize in 10 seconds, this is that very gland in the middle of the brain that is as big as a nail in the shape of a pine cone, and that has very specific properties. Not only it has photosensitive or light-sensitive cells, so reacting to light, but also piezoelectric cells, so reacting to the electromagnetic fields around us. And aside of that, in many cultures, the pineal gland is often considered as a bridge to other realities, to other planes of existence. And it's very interesting because this is actually the gateway, or the portal, to transcending things and accessing other realities. So I don't want to go too much into that wording. I mean, Dan is way more talented than me on this.
To say that
but
my pineal gland has been burning like red hot for many years with the bleeding. And when I did his gadget, it was much better than my best, than LSD in graduate. I did it once. This is better. My pineal went.
so yeah, well, and it's interesting. It's interesting also to see that the light seems to go where it needs to go. Like, even though we have different programs that basically, or I would say intentionally, are targeted to go into specific direction, like being more stimulating or calming or helping you to sleep or stimulating cognitive function or memory. Yeah, we do have some of these. At the end of the day, although we're all made and built in the same mold, somehow we're all different. And the truth is that our very own neural network is very unique. I mean, if any one of us would have a genetical twin, you know, we would be and perceive reality differently, and that's a fact. And because of that, you know, you could give the same program to two different people, and they will experience different things, even in the same moment, in the same context. So it's very surprising, which leads to some of these testimonials. And I've got this one from this gentleman called John that I'd like to share. So I'm just going to move over there. All right. So it's just a 3-4 minutes. It's very quick, but it's interesting. So basically what they did is they interviewed a couple of people, first of all, before doing their session, and obviously right after. And they asked all of them the same question is, would you consider yourself as a spiritual person or as a more materialistic or rational person? Just to set the base, because obviously based on your own, you know, views, belief systems, it could also influence the experience. So it's good to know in advance. All right. So here we go.
My name is John. How you doing? I'm feeling good.
Oh.
Feeling good, yeah.
Sorry.
I am definitely a spiritual person. I'm not particularly religious, but I'm definitely spiritual.
Okay, let me try to move that back here. I'm gonna switch over here. 1 second. Is it not coming? No, it's not coming. Okay. Just give me a second. I'm just trying to reconnect with this. So. Okay. I'm going to close this. So, you know what? I'm just going to do this.
All is successful by pressing the next button.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I changed that. So, let's see if I can just extend this real quick. Duplicate. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, here we go.
John, how you doing? I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good, yeah. I'm definitely a spiritual person. I'm not particularly religious, but I'm definitely spiritual. I've pretty much been spiritual my whole life. I mean, I was raised very Catholic, and just kind of found. But in my adulthood, I've explored Buddhism. I've explored different things. So yeah, I'm kind of always seeking. I do meditate. I meditate. I try to do it on a daily basis for like 5-10 minutes when I first get up. I don't always do it because sometimes the demands of the day kick in, but yes, I do it on a pretty regular basis. What I'm expecting from the experience is surprise. I mean, I'm kind of excited because I don't know a lot about it. I would rather kind of go into it and experience it. So yeah, so I'm kind of, hey, let's try something new. I almost wanted to know as little about it as possible before heading into it. My current emotional state is happiness. It's a Saturday morning, it's my birthday, I got a good day planned, so. Pretty joyful. I would say right now my state is joyful. I feel relaxed, but at the same time I feel energized, and I kind of feel cleaned out, for lack of a better way of putting it. Yeah, that's kind of clean, purified experience that I had. It was vast. It was very colorful. It was at times very emotional. There was one time in particular I felt as though it was that state of being kind of out of your body and into another realm. And for me, it was sort of like the afterlife. And I remember just kind of a very brief kind of contact with my father, who's been passed away for a long, long time now. And that was one of the experiences that I wanted to kind of hold on to, but then it kind of went. And you can't control that. And it didn't make me sad. I mean, I almost feel more sad now talking about it, but at the time it was wonderful. You know what I mean? Because I felt like there was almost like another contact with him. It's been a long time. I felt like my awareness was enhanced. That I was more, while relaxed, I was more alert, which is a great state to be in. In life, if you're relaxed and you're calm, but you're still able to focus and be alert, and I felt like I kind of had that. And when I'm really in that kind of state of like relaxed focus at the end of a yoga class, at the end of a good like 90-minute yoga class, I'll almost feel like I can levitate myself off the ground. And I had a little bit of that sensation that I was levitating at moments during the experience, probably closer towards the end of it. Which makes sense, because the more you give yourself over to it and the more you relax, there's a higher state of whatever consciousness or unconsciousness that you get into. It would be interesting to do it more often. I mean, I think the first time you do it, there's always going to be a little bit of a camera, if you will, on yourself having the experience, and you're kind of logging the experience. Now, it was pretty easy for me to, when I felt conscious thought coming into it, for me to just breathe through that and relax and get rid of it. But it was still there, and I think that part of that was because it was the first time with the experience. I mean, it's definitely something that I would want to revisit and kind of see what sort of benefit effect, ongoing stuff it would have on me.
Okay, I'll stop here. Not because it's not interesting, but because
I think you want to try it.
yeah, but because it's a nice testimonial, and at the same time, it's what I would call a mild one, because I got a lot of people that had much stronger experiences. It's different for everyone. It's different from time to time. I've been lucky to use these lamps for like 6 years. I have accompanied more than 6,000 people by now, and so I've got some perspective on this. And every time, even for me as a facilitator, it's every time a surprise. I never know what to expect. You know, even though there are things that I see coming back on and on. But do you want to share your experience the other night, just real quick?
I was completely exhausted and out of stamina, and suddenly I had a gentle program, and I fell asleep. I woke many times, okay? And when you told me 25 minutes, I didn't perceive it at all. And I was about to go to bed. It's not like I wouldn't be able to sleep. On the opposite, it helped me to go to sleep and sleep really in a good way to regenerate myself. So that's really good.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so that shows also something else that's very interesting, is the perception of time-space when you're under the lamp is completely distorted. So, and I've got like countless stories of people that have been on there for like just 10 minutes, 15 minutes. They could have swear to God that they spent an hour. Or the opposite, like spending a long program under and thought that they spent just 10, 15 minutes. So it's very interesting. And even though your eyes are closed, you perceive so much light and so much shapes around you. And not only in the regular sight's angle, sometimes it feels like you see 360 degrees. It's very unique. A point that is interesting is that there is definitely this notion of fractality at each level, and I just use these images because, for those who remember Tufan's presentation yesterday, he mentioned those nice electron diffraction patterns. And finally, these lamps, if you look at them, they have a kind of a similar, design. And it's totally random. I mean, they could have come up with anything, whatever else. And so that's one thing. And I like these images, why? Because very often, this is the type of thing you will actually see during the light, during a session. And so there's this notion of geometry, fractality that we experience in a lot of different ways. And just to show some more, these are some more type of images that people often see when they're under the lamp. It's massive. It's maybe psychedelic for some people, if they want to call it like that. I don't know. But there's really this notion of being sucked into a world and into a tunnel, like in Stargate somehow. And actually, that links back to what you just shared before with those 4 forms constant, which is the
That is tunnel spiral. Yes.
Thank you.
Blue head.
All right. So, and that's this type of forms that we often actually see when we're under these lamps. And
Going to the next dimension.
yeah, and why? I mean, it's fascinating to see how much we actually can perceive or see. This is further structures that some people claim that they saw when they went under the light. So there's this kind of spiral effect. It's very shamanic, psychedelic, and some other, most likely, it reminds us a bit of somatic patterns that we saw by I think that was George that shared that earlier. And so the question is, why do we see those fractals and those patterns all the time? I can't explain. You probably have a theory around it, most likely. But
I saw something like that.
yeah, I'm not surprised. I'm going to have to. And all these visions, these images, these shapes that we see go by really quickly. And that's another trick, if I may say that, that's really interesting in these experiences, is that there is this notion of speed, in a way, which is paradoxical, because some people, when they're caught up into something real quick, they may ask, but where's the relaxing effect behind this, if it goes so fast? Well, actually, it's a trick to trick the mind. So often people, literally disconnect. There is a part of the mind that disconnects and take them away to other places to remain diplomatic, and it's incredible. And I often actually explain to people after the session that there is this kind of a cycle that we often actually I see. I've seen it so many times, that goes literally like this sine wave all the time, where parts where people feel like coming on the top of a wave, which is extremely dynamic with a lot of shapes, colors, form. It's almost explosive sometimes. And at some point, you slide down into that other side of that wave, where things start slowing down, where people start having thoughts about their daily life, or things they need to buy, or whatever, and then that slide continues to a point where we reach a bottom, and this is that famous hypnagogic state, and that links back to what you said before, which is, and that's what we're targeting in those sessions somehow. It's because in that state, people sometimes experience epiphanies, or ideas, intuitions, sometimes guidance, visions. And for the most psychic people, sometimes, they may hear things or see things, I don't know, but it's fascinating. And on top, there's a lot of regeneration happening in the body, for the nervous system, for the neurohormonal system. Everything is happening in that very moment. So it's actually, very healing in a way.
And to be clear, we met Pascal before and loved his device, but when our West Coast Therapy Center said they were experimenting for certain kinds of cancer issues, actually fungal, that combining this light with the plasma, they had extreme success with fungal-based cancer. That was their words. So we wanted to explore the synergy. That's why.
Yeah, and there has been only just a couple of months, 12 months, that I've been using therapy on one hand, and for a couple of more years, these lamps. But there's so much synergies we can do. It just requires a bit of organization and yeah.
Have you had experience working with that and therapy?
Personally, not in the same time. I've tried a couple of times right after, one after the other, but not in the same time, because up to now, what Dan recommended to me is that when you use the therapy, you do not use metal.
I meant one after the other.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yes. And I can talk about the few people I've tried that, because usually when they come to my place, they want to try one specific device for a specific purpose. But I've done that a few times, not that much. I still need to do some exploration. But it seemed that the energy level, the feeling of letting go has been expanded and increased, rather than just by one of the two tools. So it seems really that there's an enhancing power by merging or using the two devices. Yeah. Yes?
Can you talk a little bit about the science behind it?
Yeah. So back to these two scientists that created the Lucia, or the two other British guy that created the Pandora star. That's the name. It's very paradoxical, because they have a totally different approach. Our two scientists from Austria although they're, scientists, they've chosen a much more intuitive approach with people. So with the Lucia, we've got like 160 plus programs with different frequencies, different wavelengths that will induce specific states. What they're suggesting is, because we're all different and we can't, we could rationalize, that certain programs or certain protocol could be more effective than others. They prefer to go with trying different programs to narrow down the path of the best experience for that person, because we're all different. And the other ones, on the contrary, they want to back up as much as possible all their programs with more science, literature, and understanding.
So I actually meant more literally. I meant that device that's sitting right next to what's being delivered. How is it different from, for example, a sunlight?
Fair. All right.
Apologies for
No, it's okay. It's okay. Well, basically, and that's a good point actually. I don't call it like light therapy or chromotherapy, like some others might do, because we're using devices that target the pineal gland in a very specific way. So mechanically, this lamp here using only LEDs. All right, there are 12. Over there, we have 8 LEDs and 1 halogen bulb. So there's a little difference in this one because the mix of these two types of different light or bulbs creates something bigger in a way. Although on this one, we've got more LEDs and some have a more halogenic function in a way to kind of, because they couldn't copy the same lamp. It's just, there's a patent on this one. So that's for the mechanics on the lamp. Then it's, again, each program have different sequences of specific wavelengths that we're trying to use to tackle certain states in the brain because of the brain entrainment capacity of our brain. So
I should say, I'm sure you know, we did a sort of career in hypnosis and stage hypnosis and hypnotic induction after high school, actually. And at that time, that's too long ago, but there's a major body of literature about pulse width modulation for hypnotic induction. It's actually an evolved field. So there's a history here. And this is pulse width and pulse duration. Pulse width, pulse amplitude. So pulse frequency and pulse width modulation. And you get the ratio among them right, and you can cascade, you can implode. And this is not simple. But because the new digital pulse width modulation for LEDs is far more switchable than what we had 30 years ago when we were it's understandable to me that this technology has evolved so beautifully.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks. And then, so you had mentioned plasma in the beginning, so I was just curious. So it's the LED can.
Yeah, the LEDs there's a little plasma perhaps on the halogen, but it's mostly LED pulse width modulation.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, most likely yes. But what I like about these two things is that with the theraphi, to talk about that for a second, we're inducing changes in the electromagnetic field of the person by those phase conjugate, implosive capacity or capacitors. In here, it's not producing a particular electromagnetic field, but via specific wavelengths or photonic stimulation, we're targeting something similar in the end result. So it's not approaching the same way, but it's aiming at a similar outcome. Now, on the theraphi though, to me, it's something more physical. The effect on a cellular level or on a subatomic level is clear in my mind, at least right now. This is more a shift induced in the mind and the brain that obviously will have physiological reactions, but it's a tricky
You can get
debate.
an explosive heterodyne between the pulse frequency and the pulse width modulation. So you have square wave of pulse width and the frequency, and you heterodyne the two with respect to each other. You could implode. The theory, really, But that's a long conversation. But
Yeah, we could talk for hours, and I'll be happy. This lady first. Yes.
I just want to add something.
Sure.
I do past life regression hypnosis.
Yeah, I used to do that too.
Okay, so what you're
Mm-hmm.
and you go through to the right brain, and you go through to the right creative side,
Mm-hmm.
then you start to see all the images and access the theta state.
Yeah, yeah.
You go into a trance, and then, because if the images are coming quickly, I would imagine they're too quick to think about, so you become an observer. When you become the observer,
That's the idea.
you go into the observing state,
Yeah.
which is then you
Because-
access more information
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct.
from yourself.
And the idea, again, is to go beyond the thoughts,
Yeah.
beyond
Well,
your
that part of
mind.
the brain communicates in pictures, not thoughts, not words.
No, right. Yeah.
So maybe
Um,
it's something in the pictures that are being shown. I don't know how it works. If you give me lots of different pictures or...
Well, actually, that's the mystery of these. I mean, it's not a mystery to me, but the magic, I would say, of these lamps is that these lamps send just flickering white light. There's no image, no color, no shape, no form whatsoever
I couldn't
produced by the lamp.
believe it. Color.
Produced by the lamp. It's just flickering white light, nothing else. And what's magical is that your brain, your neural network, will translate that into that world of colors, shapes, images, that some of them might even connect with certain memories. I mean, no later than, was it like last week, I had a couple that came to me, and the man, afterwards, they shared with me that he saw some past life images that came to his mind. Well, is already kind of pretty connected, but that is not the norm. I just want to say, but it's you never know. You never know.
It doesn't matter as long as it's something that the superconscious wants to make you aware of to heal.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just wondering what it is that, like you said, is it a sequence of lights? How do they program it?
It's a choice by each creator of the program. With the Lucia, it's mostly the two inventors that create the programs. On the Pandora Star Light, we have a community of different people from all over the world that creates programs. I mean, I can do it, you could do it. I can even show you the software. I've got it here already. So, well, actually, I can take a real quick. Just, is it working? Yeah. So, for example, this is one program here that's 25 minutes long with 45 plus sequences, and you see how many seconds each sequences are. And we've got 4 oscillators, and we can program 4 oscillators in parallel. Usually it requires only one to have it working, and we don't actually need more, but we could totally do that. So for example, on the first loop here, the first 55 seconds, we have a square wave oscillating at 1 hertz. All right, and then we move. Can I go like this? We move to a 13-second loop, still at 1, and then actually I think this program is increasing little by little. See, and then we go to 2 hertz, 3 hertz, and it moves up and up. Okay, so the creator of that program decided to start very low, like clearly on a delta wave level, which is very relaxed, even sleepy, and then increase. Well, I'm not going to go through all the steps or the loops, but this is just to show the ability of what we can do with this little program. Yes?
Do you recommend one device over the other for certain types of people, age, or? You know,
I would be totally biased, but no. I mean, I've been using both for years, both personally and professionally. I love them both. I tend to often use a little bit more this one than this one, although I do use this one and travel a lot with this one. It's a very subjective question. And same question proactively if people are asking me, what's the difference between these two lamps? I usually say, only you will be able to tell. You have to try both to see for yourself. I've been using them both for so long that I just can't tell any difference anymore. Yes?
Are your frequencies computer generated on your own personal computer, or is there a separate signal generator?
For this one?
Both.
Yeah, I mean, basically, this is the program, all right? Then everything's transferred by a simple USB cable. It's stored in here. On this lamp here, there's actually a separate laptop that monitor everything by Bluetooth. Or you can
buy a laptop to use that?
It's coming with the lamp. Okay.
So that solves the problem of it not being running on a Macintosh?
On this one, you've got a laptop. On this one, you can actually use either on PC or Mac. Yeah. Yes?
So have you found a correlation with people that have said that they had past life experiences with the different programs with the wavelengths that have been produced? Because would that not be the DNA structure changing and entangling with other aspects, other programs to bring in that other past life or whatever?
I'd love to answer straight to that question, but I can't. Not because I don't want, because we're all reacting differently. So there is no one simple rule for for everyone. I've been, when I was practicing quantum hypnosis or regression, past life hypnosis for a couple of years, I often used just a light session before the actual hypnosis session, and it literally speed up the process to taking them into those deeper states, because it bypass that superactive left brain part of the brain. So that's the idea.
And Carol, in the Barcelona Center, using the theraphi for deep psychoanalysis, consistently he said he's able to get people deeper in hypnosis and psychoanalysis much faster, again with plasma.
Yeah, there was a question over there.
Yeah,
Sorry. Yeah.
Have you ever used the biofeedback loop, so that you go into your initial startup stage and then feedback from the individual into a journey?
So what I've been using actually, it goes in the same vein, but for many years I've been using a HeartQuest variability monitor called a HeartQuest monitor, so HRV monitor, to track the differences between, basically before and after the session on all main systems of the body. So as I said before, nervous system, neurohormonal system, psycho-emotional system, metabolic pyramid, so you could actually see the level of energy shifting. And even on more subtle levels, like you could see the chakras, the aura, the meridians, the Chinese elements of the medicines, So, and in more than 90% of the people, you could actually see a boost in their values before the session and after, and sometimes it was dramatic. And that was fun, because when I was facing people that are very left brain and very, they don't believe in all that things, and they actually see their heartbeat dropping, their level of stress dropping, and all these things, they're like, oh my gosh. And they realize that they're not connected to their body and their feelings. So it was a wake-up call for them to start opening up to other things and be more connected with their own feelings. I don't use it anymore much, because it's also, on the other hand, also a way to remain, in the mind, on the values and numbers, whereas the idea is to go beyond the mind, right? And be more connected. But I don't know if it answers a bit your question.
I'd like to propose a wonderful synergy. We introduced to Patrick, and you help us use flame and mind to teach alpha in brainwaves. We generate the alpha and we feed back.
Yeah, we can.
That's so cool.
Yeah, we definitely can.
Let's play with that. That could be the most powerful way. We use sounds to teach alpha, or we use the lights to teach alpha, and then feed it back, so you know when you're succeeding.
Mm.
Cool.
So, before we get to that, since I'm sure some people want to try it, right after dinner, we're going to move everything back in the other room over there. So until whenever, I'll be there. You just show up, and I'll try to give as many people sessions as possible. I don't know if it's going to be full, like 20, 25, 30-minute session, because if there's a lot of people, we'll try to space out things in a way that is manageable. Tomorrow after lunch break, I'll be also available, and the day after, the full day. So we should have enough space for everyone. If
I have a request.
yes.
Because I understand you do groups also. Could you do some little short program for all of us? So that we
Yes.
can bond and
Yes, it's actually ready for that. So I'm going to run a very short program here. It's not going to be the full program, just 1 or 2 minutes for you to see how it flickers, how it works. It will probably not have much effect because also of the distance. Usually we're literally like a arm reach under it, you know, like a meter or 3 foot away from it. But so basically this is how it works. So count down, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 6, 2. Officially, this is a 10-minute program called Alpha. So the main wavelengths over there are for targeting the alpha state.
Perfect.
So this is just to give a little hint on how it works, how it functions. Another point that's maybe nice and important to mention as well is that everybody can use these lamps except people with epileptic or seizure history, people who have psychosis history, pregnant women, and low-age children. But besides that, anyone can use it.
I remember in Andromeda stream, pulsing light induced a focus.
All right, I'm going to stop here. Okie dokie. Okay.
Yeah, when
But-
you're really close, man.
Oh yeah, when you close, it's a completely different thing. Here you can hardly feel anything, but when you'll be in front of it, individually, it will be different. And on top, when I run session, usually I give a headphone with special music, special sounds that enhance the whole experience and take you even to another level. So that's it. All right.